Here is the key question on the practical side of the theology. By what standard will you and I determine our standing before God? And you really only have two options. We try and make a third one, but we really only have two options. Your behavior or God's grace. Your behavior or God's grace. Those are really the only two options that we have. And most of us were raised to believe that our behavior has something to do with how with God's posture towards us. Most of us were raised to believe that how we act has something to do with how we stand before God. And so if that's the case, I would simply ask you, what are the behaviors that make you okay with God? What are the behaviors that change God's posture toward you? And you would probably stammer a little bit. Maybe you'd stutter, and then you would say, well, there's that whole 10 Commandments thing, right? Don't kill people, don't steal, don't lust, all those things. And I would say that's a great point. However, the 10 Commandments were given to people who are already good with God, not to help them become good with God. Oh, interesting. We'll take another swing. What are the behaviors that make you good with God? And then you would probably start pointing out stuff from the New Testament. And I've had people phrase it to me like this, like those fruit things from the Holy Spirit, right? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, all those fruit things. And I would say that's great. Those fruit things are really important. Where does the Bible say anywhere, where is the list anywhere that says being patient makes you good with God? Where is the list anywhere that says being joyful makes you good with God? Listen to me, the list doesn't exist. Nowhere in the Bible is there any list of behaviors that if you do them, you'll be okay with God. Nowhere in the Bible is there any kind of a list of behaviors that says if you nail this list, God will be happy with you. The list does not exist. It's not in the Bible. It's not outside of the Bible. It's not in the hole in the ground in the Middle East somewhere waiting to be uncovered by archaeologists. There is no list anywhere that says if you nail these behaviors, you will be okay with God. If there was a list, it would open a whole other can of worms, and that other can of worms would be okay. If this is the list of behaviors that makes you okay with God, then how good at each of those behaviors do you have to be in order to be good with God? But the list does not exist. It is not there. There is no list. There is no behavior that you can master that is going to make you good with God. It does not exist. We confuse behaviors that are a good response to God's love with behaviors that we think will earn God's love, and that is a huge error. Listen to me. All of the do's of the Bible are in response to God's pursuit of you with outrageous love of another kind. None of them are to earn God's love or God's favor. And if you were raised with some kind of a religion or some kind of a perspective, and it kind of makes you nervous because religion kind of raises people to experience a kind of behavior management Christianity where we try and come up with this third option, right? Where I'm going to strive to do the very best I can. I'm going to be as loving as I can be. I'm going to behave as much as I can behave. I'm going to be as good as I can possibly become. And when I perform to the very best of my ability, I know I can never be quite perfect enough to be what God needs me to be. But when I perform to the best of my ability, then God's grace will show up. And God's grace will build a bridge from the best that I can do to what I need to be okay with God. And so it becomes kind of this mixture of my behavior and God's grace. The Bible doesn't teach that. The Bible doesn't teach that anywhere. It is not there. It's just not there. It is all God's grace. Every do in the Bible is a response to God's pursuit of you with outrageous love of another kind. It is not to earn God's love. And so if that's what you got out of church when you were growing up, if that's the thing that you have stuck in your heart, listen to me. I am so sorry. That's not what the Bible teaches. There is only one thing that God says makes you okay with him. There is only one thing, and that is grace, which you accept by faith That's it. And God says it is a gift, and a gift is always about the giver. Now listen to me. I am a different man today than I was 5 years ago or even 1 year ago. I am a different man today. And you can ask Bren. She'll tell you I'm a different guy. But I'm a different guy because I am free to respond to God's embrace of me with outrageous love of another kind, not because I'm guilt-driven and pressured to try and earn anything from God. I am free, I am accepted, I am declared good with God, and in that freedom, I am free to respond to all that God is doing in me. It is an entirely different perspective on life. It is the abundant life that Jesus says he came to provide for us in John 10:10. I'm not pressured, I'm free. It's a whole other thing. And so here's the question. Only you can answer it. And only you can answer it in your heart of hearts. What are you counting on to make you acceptable to God? And be honest. Because most of us get the grace thing to a degree, but we're not willing to let go of the behavior thing. And so we try to come up with option 3, which biblically does not exist, where I work hard so I can be proud of what I'm doing, where I work hard and I can look at what other people are doing and measure myself against them, and I can either feel really good about myself because I've got it nailed better than they do, or I can feel really bad about myself because I'm just never going to be as good as they are. It's about us plus God's grace. Wrong. On what are you counting to make yourself acceptable to God? Paul just said there's only one thing. There's only one thing. There's only one thing. And that's 100% grace. It's 100% grace. It is only grace. And so you have a decision that you can make. You can decide, I'm gonna attempt to be self-righteous. I'm going to attempt to behave so well. I'm going to attempt to get this so right in my motives, in what I do, in how I do it, that when I stand before God, he's going to say, I find no wrong in you. You'll be the first one since Jesus. But hey, that is an option. Or you can depend on God's grace that you trust. Those are your only two options. Those are your only two options. So what do you do? My invitation to you is to just come before God and lay it down. All of that striving, all of that pressure, all of that guilt, you come before Jesus and you lay it down. Because Jesus says, you know what, I've done this for you, man. I've done this for you. I took the penalty that you deserve, that you'll never experience because of my mercy. I experienced it for you. I've taken it, put it on my back. I've paid your price. I'm willing to give it to you. So you just come before me and you lay it down. The striving, you lay down the guilt, you lay down the pride, you lay down all the looking around and measuring yourself against other people and other people against other people, and you let it be about me and what I have done for you, and you just accept it, and then you are free to respond to all that I am and all that I have done. So what are you counting on to make yourself acceptable to God? Your behavior or God's grace? Will you pick it up and work your butt off trying to make it happen? Or will you lay it down and take what Jesus said he has already done? That is a decision that only you can make.